The fall
The
that
beauty of
changed
this view is
everything.
only
At
surpassed by your
exactly
presence.
3 a.m.,
And
when
yours
the
by
world
this
stood
shared
silent
moment.
between regret and hope, she chose the air over another night of pain. The city slept, unaware that a life was about to break free from its chains. Her name was Isla. She had learned long ago that screaming only made things worse. So when she climbed onto the narrow edge of the third-floor window, barefoot and shaking, she didn't cry out. She didn't pray either. Prayers had never answered her before. What she felt instead was something quieter, something braver. Resolve. Behind her, the room still smelled of anger, of cheap alcohol, of words that bruised deeper than fists. The door had been slammed hard enough to rattle the walls, followed by silence that never meant peace. Silence only meant waiting. Isla didn't wait anymore. She stepped forward. The night rushed up to meet her, cold and sharp, tearing tears from her eyes as gravity pulled her down. 3 floors. Stone pavement. No escape waiting below, only an end. And yet, for one fragile heartbeat, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Freedom. She never hit the ground. Arms caught her mid-air, impossibly strong, impossibly gentle. The impact she had prepared herself for never came. Instead, she found herself cradled against a chest that did not rise or fall with breath. Her body froze. Her mind fractured. She opened her eyes. The face above her looked like it had been carved from moonlight and shadow. Pale skin that glowed faintly in the darkness. Sharp, regal features. Eyes darker than the night sky, ancient and knowing, eyes that had seen centuries rise and fall. They weren't angry. They were furious. But not at her. "You're safe now," he said, his voice low, steady, controlled, like distant thunder held behind glass. "I won't let you fall." Isla's body betrayed her then. She began to shake violently, teeth chattering despite the mild night. The adrenaline drained, leaving behind terror and exhaustion all at once. "Please," she whispered, the word tearing at her raw throat. "Please don't take me back." The stranger's grip tightened, not possessive, not controlling. Protective. "I'm not taking you back to him," he said quietly. "Ever." How did he know? Her window still gaped open above them, dark and accusing. Any moment now, the man she'd run from could wake, could notice, could come looking. "We need to go," the stranger said as if reading her thoughts. "He will search for you." Pause. "And I would rather not stain your garden with his blood tonight." Tonight. Isla didn't have time to ask what that meant. The ground vanished beneath them. They weren't walking. They were moving, fast. Faster than anything human. Buildings blurred. Streetlights stretched into gold ribbons. The wind-dried tears she hadn't realized were falling. What are you?" she managed, barely audible. He didn't slow. "My name is King Lucian Nightborn," he replied. "And you are far braver than you know." The city disappeared behind them. Concrete gave way to forest. Civilization surrendered to darkness and towering trees. And then, rising from the hills like something out of a forbidden dream. A castle. Black stone. Towering spires. Warm golden light glowing behind tall windows, defying the hour. He landed on a balcony with soundless grace and gently set her on her feet. Her legs nearly gave out. She was wearing only a thin nightdress torn at the sleeve. Her arms bore bruises in shades of purple and yellow, a silent history written into her skin. She tried to hide them. "Don't," Lucian said softly. His eyes traced every mark. Not with pity. With rage. "How long?" he asked. Isla swallowed. 7 years. The word echoed between them. 7, he repeated as if tasting something bitter. "And no one helped you." "I stopped asking," she said quietly. "People don't like to get involved." Lucian turned away, jaw tight. Humans have very strange definitions of honor. Inside, the castle was warm, stone and firelight, velvet tapestries, shadows that felt alive but not threatening. "You're freezing," he said. "And injured." He guided her with a careful distance, never touching unless she leaned toward him first. The room he led her to was larger than her entire apartment had been. Firelight danced across stone walls. A massive bed draped in deep crimson velvet stood at its center. "This is too much," she whispered. "I don't belong here." "You belong where you are safe," Lucian replied. "Tonight that is here." She hesitated. Kindness always came with a cost. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Lucian studied her for a long moment. "Nothing," he said. "Except the truth." He knelt before her. A king kneeling. As he cleaned her wounds, his touch was cool but careful, respectful in a way she had never known. The pain eased unnaturally fast. "You sensed me," he said. That is why you jumped when you did. She frowned. I just knew I couldn't stay. That was enough. When he finished, he stood and offered his hand. Rest, he said. Real rest. As she lay beneath warm covers for the first time in years, fear slowly loosened its grip. Safe. The word felt unreal. Lucien paused at the door. Sleep well, Isla, he said. Tomorrow we begin teaching you what freedom truly means. The castle where fear began to heal. Morning arrived gently, as if the sun itself was afraid to wake her too suddenly. Isla opened her eyes to warmth, real warmth, not the fragile illusion she had learned to cling to in broken rooms. Golden light filtered through tall windows she didn't recognize, touching stone walls and heavy curtains like a blessing. For one quiet moment she forgot everything. There was no shouting. No footsteps outside the door. No voice reminding her of her place. Then memory returned. The fall. The arms that caught her. The vampire king. Her body tensed instinctively, years of survival rising before reason. Slowly, carefully she sat up. Pain lingered, bruises still ached, cuts still stung, but it was distant, muted, like it belonged to another version of her. Whatever Lucien had used on her wounds had done more than heal the skin. It had softened the pain itself. She noticed the clothes then. A simple dress laid neatly on a chair, deep forest green, soft fabric worn smooth by time. Not extravagant. Not new. Chosen with care. Beneath it, undergarments still bearing tags purchased in haste. Her throat tightened. No one had bought her clothes in years. She dressed slowly, hands trembling, half expecting someone to burst in and accuse her of stealing comfort she didn't deserve. But no one came. The castle remained quiet, respectful, as if it knew she needed silence more than words. When she stepped into the corridor, the space seemed endless. Stone arches. Tapestries depicting battles long forgotten. Candles burning without smoke. Everything whispered of age and power, and yet nothing felt threatening. She found him in the great hall. Lucien stood near a tall window, hands clasped behind his back, dark hair falling loose against a black coat that looked as old as the castle itself. He didn't turn when she entered. I hope you slept, he said. Yes, Isla replied, surprised by the steadiness of her voice. I haven't slept like that in years. Lucien nodded as if he already knew. Breakfast is prepared, he said. But only if you wish. She hesitated. Meals had always been conditional. Controlled. I'd like that, she said finally. They ate together in quiet. No questions. No demands. Just presence. It was unsettling how safe it felt. Afterward, Lucien led her to a smaller chamber filled with sunlight and shelves of ancient books. He motioned for her to sit. Tell me about the night you jumped, he said gently. Isla's fingers tightened in her lap. I wasn't planning to escape, she admitted. I didn't think I could. I just needed air. And then he said something that broke whatever was left holding me there. Lucien's eyes darkened, but he said nothing. He told me I was nothing, she continued. That no one would ever protect me. That if I left, the world would teach me how stupid I was for trying. Her voice cracked. So I chose the fall. Silence followed, not the suffocating kind, but one filled with restraint. You were wrong about one thing, Lucien said at last. She looked up. You were never unprotected, he said. You simply hadn't reached the place where protection could find you. He stood and paced slowly, controlled anger radiating from him like winter. I sensed you because you are different, he continued. Not powerful, not magical, but perceptive. Your fear called to something older than instinct. Isla frowned. I'm just ordinary. Lucien stopped in front of her. Ordinary people do not survive what you survived and still choose kindness, he said. Ordinary people do not jump into the dark and still hope. She didn't know what to say to that. Later, servants appeared, quiet, respectful, never staring. They brought salves, warm water, fresh bandages. One brushed Isla's hair with care so gentle it made her eyes burn. No one asked her to be grateful. No one told her she owed anything. That night, as the sun sank and shadows stretched across the stone floors, Lucien found her standing on a balcony, staring into the forest below. Do you regret it? He asked. Jumping? She said softly. No. Leaving? She shook her head. I regret staying so long. Lucien was silent for a moment. He will come looking, he said. Men like him always do. Fear flickered in her chest. But not here, he added calmly. And not without consequence. She looked at him then, really looked. At the stillness he carried. The control. the restraint of something powerful choosing not to destroy. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Lucien met her gaze. "Because power that does not protect is meaningless," he said. "And because you remind me of someone I once failed." Isla didn't ask who. As the moon rose, something shifted between them, not romance, not promises, but understanding. For the first time, Isla wasn't surviving. She was beginning to exist. And far below the castle walls, in a world that had already judged her worthless, consequences were quietly awakening. The secret that awakened the night. The castle revealed itself slowly, like a living thing deciding whether to trust her. Days passed without urgency. Isla learned the rhythm of the place, the way sunlight lingered briefly before retreating, the way shadows lengthened with purpose, the way silence here felt thoughtful rather than punishing. No doors were locked. No orders were given. And yet she never felt the need to run. Lucien watched her carefully. Not in the way men had watched her before, searching for weakness or control, but like a guardian observing something fragile and rare. He never rushed her, never demanded answers. When she flinched at sudden sounds, he adjusted the world around her instead of asking her to adapt. It unsettled him how instinctive his protectiveness had become. One evening, as storm clouds gathered beyond the mountains, Lucien guided her into a wing of the castle she hadn't yet seen. The air felt different there, older, heavier, charged with memory. "This is the night court," he said quietly. "What remains of it?" The hall was vast, lined with empty thrones carved from obsidian and silver. Dust lay untouched, as though even time itself hesitated to disturb the place. "Where is everyone?" Isla asked. "Gone," Lucien replied. "Some by choice. Some by betrayal. Some by my command." She glanced at him. "Because of war?" "Because of power," he corrected. "And what people become when they seek it." They stopped before a large door sealed with markings she didn't recognize, symbols etched so deeply into the stone they looked burned rather than carved. Lucien hesitated. "I have not opened this chamber in decades," he said. "But something changed the night you fell." Her breath caught. "Me?" "You sensed me," he said. "And now this place senses you." Against reason he placed his hand on the seal. Nothing happened. Isla didn't know why she stepped forward. She didn't know why her fingers lifted, trembling, to rest beside his. The markings glowed. The door opened with a sound like a sigh. Lucien turned sharply, disbelief flashing across his usually controlled expression. That should not be possible. Inside lay a smaller chamber bathed in dim blue light. At its center stood a stone cradle, ancient and cracked with age. Within it rested a figure wrapped in ceremonial cloth, still, pale, unmistakably alive. A young vampire. His chest rose shallowly, each breath fragile. Lucien froze. "My heir," he whispered. Isla felt the weight of the moment without understanding its full meaning. She stepped closer, drawn by something gentle and aching. "He's suffering," she said softly. Lucien nodded. "Poisoned decades ago. A curse designed to silence my bloodline. No magic has broken it." Isla swallowed. "May I?" Lucien stared at her. "This is not something you should." She knelt anyway. The boy's skin was cold beneath her fingers but not lifeless. She closed her eyes, listening, not with her ears but with something deeper. The way she had learned to listen for danger. For mood shifts. For the invisible signals that kept her alive. Her lips parted. Words flowed out, ancient, unfamiliar, yet known. Lucien went rigid. That language hadn't been spoken aloud in centuries. The air shifted. The markings along the walls glowed brighter. The boy gasped, deep, full, real. Color returned to his skin. Lucien fell to his knees beside her, shock breaking through centuries of restraint. "You speak the first tongue," he said hoarsely. "Only queens, and watchers, ever knew it." Isla recoiled. I don't know what I said." "But you did," Lucien replied. "And you saved him." The boy's eyes fluttered open, glowing faint silver. "Isla?" he whispered. She hadn't told him her name. Fear surged, but Lucien's hand closed gently around her wrist. "You are safe," he said firmly. "And now so is my bloodline." The storm broke outside, thunder shaking the mountains as something ancient rearranged itself around her. Later that night, Isla stood alone in her chamber, shaking. She wasn't ordinary. She never had been. And Lucien, standing in the shadows beyond her door, realized something terrifying and irreversible. The woman he caught midair was not merely someone he protected. She was someone the night itself obeyed. When the king stood before the world, The world did not remain quiet once the night acknowledged her. Change moved first as a whisper, an unease that slipped through the forests and into the villages beyond the mountains. Old alliances stirred. Forgotten eyes opened. Power, once dormant, began to measure her presence the way predators sense unfamiliar strength. Lucien felt it before anyone else. The castle had not been breached in decades, yet one evening the wards trembled, candle flames bending inward as if drawn toward an unseen pressure. Isla felt it too, a tightening in her chest, not fear exactly but warning. "They're coming," she said softly. Lucien turned toward her, sharp gaze assessing not her fear but her certainty. "Yes," he said. "They are." He did not ask how she knew. The night court reassembled under moonlight, summoned by ancient call rather than command. Vampires emerged from shadows, from distant territories, from self-imposed exile. They gathered in the great hall, eyes drawn again and again toward the human woman standing beside their king. Isla felt their judgment without hearing a single word. She was small among them. Mortal. Human. Unacceptable. Lucien stepped forward before anyone could speak. "This woman stands under my protection," he said, voice calm yet carrying absolute authority. "Any threat to her is a threat to the crown." Murmurs rippled through the hall. Isla's hands trembled, but she did not step back. One of the elders finally spoke. "A human awakened the first tongue. That is dangerous." Lucien's gaze hardened. So is fear wearing wisdom's face. He turned to Isla, not to shield her but to stand with her. "She saved my heir," he continued. "She restored what your power could not. And she did so without demanding loyalty, blood, or reward." Silence fell. That was when the outside world struck. A breach, not of stone but of fate. Her past arrived like rot carried on the wind. The man she had fled stood at the edge of the forest, dragged there by consequences he did not understand. He shouted. Accused. Demanded. The night court watched. Lucien did not move at first. Isla did. Her knees nearly buckled as recognition surged, but she stood tall anyway. "He doesn't own me," she said quietly. Lucien's hand closed around hers, not possessive, not controlling. Anchoring. The man laughed, cruel and confident. "She's confused," he said. "She belongs with me." Lucien descended the steps. When he spoke, the world listened. "You mistook silence for obedience," the king said. "You mistook survival for submission." He did not kill the man. That was the true punishment. Instead, Lucien stripped him of voice, of authority, of the power to harm. He sent him back to the human world powerless and exposed, forced to live with the truth he had tried to erase. Justice, not vengeance. The night court bowed. Not to Lucien. To her. Later, as dawn approached, Isla found Lucien standing alone on the balcony. "You didn't have to do that," she said. "Yes," he replied. "I did." She studied him. "Why?" Lucien exhaled slowly. "Because choosing you publicly changes everything." "And you were willing to risk that?" He met her gaze. "I already did the night I caught you." The space between them felt fragile, charged not with desire but trust. She reached for his hand. He did not pull away. For the first time, Lucien allowed himself to imagine a future not ruled by solitude. And Isla, once invisible to the world, realized she was no longer alone. The queen the night chose. The dawn did not erase the night's truth. It softened it. Mist clung to the valleys below the castle, silver and quiet, as if the world itself were holding its breath. Isla stood at the edge of the balcony, wrapped in a cloak that still felt unfamiliar on her shoulders, not because of its warmth, but because it had been offered without conditions. Below her, the land stretched endlessly. Forests, rivers. Villages where ordinary lives unfolded in fragile routines. The human world she had survived. The world that had never protected her. Behind her, Lucien approached without sound. "You're awake early," he said. "I couldn't sleep," Isla replied. "Too much has changed." Lucien understood. For centuries, change had terrified him too. "The night court waits," he said quietly. "They are asking for answers." Isla turned to him. "About me?" "About destiny," Lucien corrected. "And whether I will deny it again." She studied his face, the calm strength, the restraint, the loneliness that had shaped him long before she ever fell from a window. "You don't owe them anything," she said. Lucien shook his head. "I owe the world honesty." They walked together into the great hall one final time. The night court stood in silence, ancient beings who had watched empires crumble now witnessing something rarer than power. Choice. Lucien raised his hand. The first tongue did not awaken by accident, he said. It responded to a soul that listens instead of commands. A heart that endures instead of conquers. Eyes turned toward Isla. She is not my possession, Lucien continued. She is not my weakness. She is the answer to a future I believed lost. An elder stepped forward. The markings are clear, she said. The Watcher has returned. Isla's breath caught. Lucien turned to her gently. Long before I was crowned, there were guardians who stood between worlds. Human-born. Night-chosen. They healed what power could not. Isla shook her head. I never wanted this. Lucien's voice softened. Neither did I. He knelt. A king before a woman who once believed she was nothing. I will not chain you to this world, Lucien said. But if you choose to stand beside me, not above, not beneath, I will spend eternity proving you were never weak. Tears filled Isla's eyes. She remembered the corner she had learned to make herself small in. The voice that told her she was worthless. The night she chose the fall. She remembered the arms that caught her. I choose, she said, voice steady now, to stay where I am seen. The night court bowed, not in fear but in recognition. That night there was no coronation. No ceremony. Only two figures standing on the balcony, watching stars burn quietly above them. Lucien did not kiss her. He simply rested his forehead against hers. Love for him had always been in action. Far below, the human world continued on, unchanged in its cruelty, but altered by the existence of someone who had escaped it. Isla was no longer homeless. She was no longer invisible. She was not saved by power. She was saved by kindness meeting strength, and choosing to walk forward together. And somewhere between night and dawn, the vampire king and the woman who dared to fall found something neither had expected. Home.